breaking news out of Florida, where the mother of dentist Charlie Adelson was arrested just days after her son's conviction in the murder-for-hire plot against his former brother-in-law, Dan Markel, the victim in that case. Adelson family matriarch, the mother, Donna Adelson, was arrested last night in Miami, 1 week after Charlie Adelson, her son, was found guilty in the first-degree murder in the 2014 death of Markel. A former Florida State professor, Charlie Adelson's conviction made him the fourth person in Dan Markel's murder to be convicted in the case. The triggerman, Sigfredo Garcia, and Adelson's ex-girlfriend, Catherine Magbanwa, were found guilty in separate trials. A third man, Luis Rivera, took a plea deal for second-degree murder and cooperated with law enforcement authorities in the prosecution of the remaining co-defendants. Donald Adelson was reportedly, get this, arrested in Miami International Airport after she and her husband allegedly purchased one-way tickets to Vietnam. Why not? Authorities booked her on an out-of-county felony warrant, but no charges have been specified yet. With me right now to break this all down is a special guest and criminal defense attorney, Tim Jansen, who has been following the Dan Markel murder case from the very beginning. Tim, I know that you are the guy because all the producers, everybody talks about how intimately you are involved in this case. So let me just toss it to you. Like, what kind of seismic effect has this arrest of the mother had, and what are your thoughts as to why it happened, when it happened, and how good a case the prosecutors have?
Well, the public has been clamoring for Donna to get arrested. And the reason that is because during the trial of her son, Charlie, the state played lots of evidence that clearly showed Donna was involved in this conspiracy. She looked like she was the lady that was moving the plans to happen, and she's on recorded calls, very damning evidence. And I think they were going to move to indict her, but when they got wind of the fact that she was getting a one-way ticket with her husband, Harvey, to Vietnam, they decided that they were going to go ahead and arrest her. And it is important because the agent that was down there was Agent Pat Sanford, the FBI agent. And Jack Campbell, the state attorney, had previously done research that it's very hard to extradite from Vietnam. It's very cumbersome, and it's long proceedings. And they did research. So they knew ahead of time she was on a no-fly list or an alert fly list, that they sent the FBI agent to Miami from Tallahassee to be there and take her in custody last night.
You know, Tim, as a former homicide prosecutor and having run a lot of cases, I've been very impressed with the prosecution team here. There have been a lot of strategical decisions. They flipped one defendant. They went after Catherine. Ultimately, they got a conviction of her, and both her and the other co-defendant who were convicted, Catherine, wanted to actually testify. So prosecutors had to navigate that nuance. Should we have her come in? What would her credibility be? Well, obviously, they made the right decision because there was another conviction there. So let me ask you with regard to this arrest of Donna, is it, you think, simply because of the flight aspect of it, or do you believe they have enough evidence to continue once again with yet another trial, which prosecutors hate to do, to try the same case over and over and over again, that they think they got the goods on her from the factual standpoint?
Oh, they've got the evidence to prosecute her. And here's what happened with Charlie's trial was a dry run of Donna. A lot of the evidence came in against Donna, and the jury verdict against Charlie came back really quick. And I think they listened to the jurors, that they interviewed jurors, and I think they were moving forward to go against Donna. And I think her trip to Vietnam only sped up the process of her being prosecuted. I think they have enough to charge her. I think they have enough to convict her. It's going to be circumstantial. But I think the consciousness of guilt and fleeing is going to be overwhelming evidence for a jury. And the state attorney has already said he's going to introduce it, and that will be admissible in a court. That it's going to be very difficult for her to beat these charges. Yeah,
Tim, just so our audience understands, flight is something where they read a charge at the end of the case talking about a consciousness of guilt. In other words, that they may indicate, amongst other evidence, that the person is guilty of the crime. I'm curious, Tim, nobody knows this case better than you. Are we at the end here, or do we expect to see other people indicted in this case?
So, Bob, here's the problem we have, and I've been telling people this for a long time. Everybody wants Wendy arrested. Everybody hates Wendy. I understand that. Who gained more than anybody? Wendy did. But here's the problem you got. You've got some tape recordings in this case that exculpate Wendy. Her brother and her mother are talking and says, when the bump happens, who does this involve? And Donna says, the two of us, inferring Charlie and Donna. Later in the tape, when it's getting more inconvenient for them, both of them are saying, Wendy doesn't realize how good she has it. No, she really doesn't understand how lucky she is. Another inference that Wendy had no knowledge or participation. And then finally, you have the issue with the subpoenas. She was given derivative use immunity 3 times to testify in the trials, which is a hurdle for the state now to use any of that information against her. Her lawyers will have an expert, and I was just informed an hour ago that Wendy sought an expert in Castigar issues in Atlanta for the very purpose of protecting her and preventing her from being charged. I do not believe Wendy will be charged. I don't think they have enough evidence. I think the Castigar issues are too significant, and I think some of the evidence they have is exculpatory against her.
Yeah, that is an unbelievable analysis, and the fact that the prosecution was using her is something that makes, just from a credibility standpoint, that extremely difficult. Well, you talked about the bump, and a big part of the case is what authorities refer to as the bump of Donald Adelson, which is when an undercover agent pretending to be a blackmailer approached Adelson outside her home to get the family to start talking about Markel's murder. Now, I've said this before, Tim. To me, again, this is great prosecution, great investigating by using these techniques in order to drum up people to start talking. So let's take a listen right now to how this operation played out. This is from Charlie Adelson's trial.
All right, let's move on to the bump. Was the bump on April 19th, 2016?
Correct.
What time of day was the bump?
I believe it was around 1:45, 1:50, somewhere around there.
Okay, in the afternoon?
In the afternoon, yes.
Were you involved in that operation?
Yes, I was.
What was your role?
I was the lead agent. Came up with brought the undercover down there, and I coordinated everything.
Okay. What was the purpose of the bump?
The purpose was we had just began the Title III on the individuals, and we knew it had been 2 years after the homicide, and we wanted to purport the undercover agent to pretend to be somebody that Luis Rivera knew. Luis Rivera was currently in prison at the time, had been in jail, was in prison, and we wanted to make it seem that Luis Rivera was talking to people and telling people what he had done, and possibly even want more money out of it because his family was struggling because he was in prison.
Why did you select Donna Adelson to be the recipient of this bump?
Because we noticed the pattern of calls leading up to the murder and around the time of the murder. The calls were always Donna Adelson to Charlie Adelson to Catherine Magbanwa to Sigfredo Garcia, and then back. It was always going back and forth pretty much in that order. So we wanted to start it on one end and see what would happen, see if it would travel that same line of people.
All right, and just so everybody knows, as soon as we have the first appearance for Donald Adelson, we will be moving as quickly as we can to get that to you. I have in studio with me Wayne Dennison, who's a trial attorney, and I also have Joe Richardson, a civil rights attorney, with me as well. But before I get to our two awesome guests, Tim, I just want to ask you one question. Talk to me about the law enforcement procedures, the bump, and basically your viewpoint on how investigators went about developing this evidence.
So the most important thing here was the Title III wire, right? That was to be able to record conversations. Very hard to get. It's limited for 30 days normally. You have to go back to that judge. And so what happens? They need information within 30 days. It's a time-tested technique. You do a bump. You go to one of the conspirators, and it was 2 years after the murder. So you go to one and hope they talk. And this is, you see it on the screen. They go to Donna and see what happens, and it worked beautifully. It got all the co-conspirators talking, And what the FBI believed was a conspiracy proved to be true. The phone calls went 111 all the way down, and it was consistent with their view of the conspiracy, and it worked well.
All right, Tim, before we get to those other guests, I gotta keep drilling you down because you know this case, like I said, so well. Tell me something that we don't know about, that the media doesn't know about, or something that you feel was underreported that you felt was really important to the outcome, the favorable outcome to prosecutors in this case.
Well, one of the most important things was, Wendy came in and testified for the third time. The defense in their opening gave this crazy double extortion theory, right? And the extortion theory was that we were being extorted by Meg Bonawa, blah, blah, blah. Wendy gets called to the stand. The prosecutor asks her, have you ever heard of this? She says, no, I heard about it 10 minutes ago. She goes, oh, so your family knew who murdered your ex-husband, the father of your children, and they didn't tell you? No. And they allowed you and let you move closer to the murderers in Miami and didn't tell you? No. Very it just destroyed their case. And then Wendy said, I don't know if it's true or not. His own sister basically said his extortion defense was hogwash.
We always look at motives in this case. Did you find anything about this case that was peculiar in terms of the motive and the number of people that wound up getting involved in this twisted tale? Because it is, even from the standpoint of a former homicide prosecutor, a very circuitous and kind of different murder case than you typically get. What struck you as being different about this case?
It looked like the matriarch, the mom, orchestrated this entire thing. She was more concerned about seeing her grandkids, having them relocate, than Wendy was. Charlie didn't care one way or the other. He's living a fancy life, chasing young women. But it was Donna. It was all Donna's doing. Look at the emails. Look at the conversations. She's telling her daughter, you need to buck up. You need to start acting. And we believe the evidence of motive. We believe it wasn't for Donna, this crime would not have been committed.
And let me further ask you, with respect to Bamwa and other defendants in the case, do you expect that there's going to be any favorable treatment for them, for any help or assistance that they gave the prosecutors, despite the fact that it happened after their convictions?
Well, Meg Bonawa has the worst baggage of any witness. I don't know what she could do or give any testimony against Donna. They had to call her because of this extortion theory. I don't believe the state wanted to call her. But she's not getting any deal until after Donna's trial. And if anybody else is charged, just remember, Donna was with Harvey at the airport. Harvey was not taken into custody. He was released. We certainly don't believe Harvey had enough evidence against him. Wendy still has not been charged. And we don't believe, I personally don't believe they have enough evidence to charge her.
Yeah, talk to me a little bit about the prosecutors in the case and the agents. What is their reputation? What's their background? What's their level of reputation and respect in the community? Because maybe I'm wrong, but from where I sit in the host chair here at the Law&Crime Network, I think they did an amazing job.
They did do an amazing job. Pat Sanford, I know very well. I've known him for over 25 years. I'm friends with him. He is the quintessential FBI agent. Focused. He's driven, not much of a sense of humor, followed the leads. His agency did a great job with the phone, with the phones, with the cameras on the buses. Georgia is probably one of the most seasoned prosecutors. She's won a lot of big trials. I think Charlie's was probably one of her biggest trials. And she's methodical. She's very calm. She's cool. And I think they worked this case brilliantly. People complain it took a long time. And justice is slow sometimes, but it can be lethal when given time.
Justice is slow, but it can be lethal. I can't agree with you more. Sometimes the community wants things to happen so much quicker. When you need to do it right and you put it in the hands of capable and competent people, may I add, not only did they get these convictions having to try the case over and over again, it seems to me like they did a very good job at avoiding appellate issues down the road when invariably defense attorneys will seek to have the conviction reversed. Okay, Tim Jensen, thank you very much. I hope you come back again. We loved having you on. Thank you, sir.
For sure. Nice talking to you.
Yeah, great talking to you as well. And perfect time for a break. I'll be back with those two awesome guests on the other end to break this down. Please stay with us. We'll be right back.